Jesus.
This is probably one of the first times I'm gonna have to say don't try this at home.
Kind of scared to do this. Kind of did it. Okay.
What is up, homies? My name is Felix, and I'm here back again with another video for you all today. And today is Christmas. This is not really a Christmas special video, but if you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays to everybody else. But yeah, essentially today, I'm going to be kind of explaining why your drums are super boring. Just terrible, awful, completely unlistenable, just disgusting. Just kidding. But if you're anything like me, you've had those points in time where you kind of feel like you're just making the same drum pattern over and over, and your drums are just kind of getting repetitive and boring, and you're not really satisfied with like the beats that you're making. So today I'm going to give you guys some ideas on how you can maybe spice up some of those boring old drum patterns and make them really cool and very unique. So yeah, make sure you guys check out my Instagram and my SoundCloud down in the description below, along with the playlist of songs I produced, my beat store, my Discord, all that stuff. Go check it out if you'd like to do so. Also, obviously, feezostore.com. I'm rocking the Have You Seen This Man classic shirt. We got this bad boy in quite a few different colors, and also in hoodies, long sleeves, crew necks, and we have 3 other designs as well. And also the last thing, make sure you guys go stream the song that me and Cyruson made in that Making a Song in 10 Minutes video.
Energy, critical, I think we both need some saving.
It's on Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, all that other stuff as well, so go check it out, link in the description. So yeah, now we can get into this video. Alright, so here we are inside of FL Studio, which is just the DAW that I use, but these tips will apply to whatever DAW that you use as well. Also, before I say anything, I just want to clarify, I'm not saying that there's any specific bad drum pattern or there's a certain way to or not to make your beats. So anyways, this is the drum pattern that we're going to be improving here today. So yeah, it's not a bad drum pattern or anything. However, it is a pretty, standard, pretty basic kind of drum pattern. And for me personally, these are the type of drum patterns that I get really bored of because I kind of do certain drum patterns like this pretty frequently with basically these exact same sounds. Which brings me to the first way that you can make your drum pattern sound less boring is changing up the sounds. A lot of times your dissatisfaction with your drum patterns can stem from the fact that you're using the same or similar sounds pretty frequently. So the obvious answer that most any other YouTuber will probably give you is, oh, we'll just use other sounds. However, I've been in this exact same situation before, and I've tried that, and it almost makes me feel more uninspired because I'm using drum sounds that I'm really not comfortable with or that I'm like not used to exactly. So there's a couple things you can do besides just completely swapping out your drum sounds. The first thing is change the pitch a little bit. You can literally just take this little knob right here, pitch it down maybe like 200 cents, and now listen to your drum pattern. And now it has a much darker feel to it, and it sounds pretty cool. This master pitch knob will also change your melody or your sample or whatever. So I would recommend going to this drop down menu and then going to transpose and then just doing like -3 or -2 or whatever. And that's a little bit of a more efficient way to just change the drum pattern. But if you don't want to do that, another thing that I would suggest is try to layer your sounds. So that way you'll already have the sounds that you like, but you can just add in other sounds to kind of give it a different profile. So now just after layering a couple sounds together, it sounds like this. As you heard, it still sounds pretty similar, but it just gives it a little bit of a different character to it. Another thing that I would try, particularly with your 808s and hi-hats, is adjusting the length of the sample. Go in here to the sampler, and then I'll just turn this out knob up so that it's much shorter compared to the original sample. And that right there is going to give your beat a totally different feel because it's going to have so much more space in there. So another reason that your drums might be kind of boring is because you're using the same or similar patterns over and over. So this drum pattern that I use right here is pretty standard. It's like the typical trap drum pattern. And my advice for this is literally just change some stuff around. Just experiment and play with different stuff and see what you like, see what sounds good, see what doesn't sound good. And eventually you'll find cool ways to make your drum pattern more unique. Like if you want to, you can do the UK drill thing where you move the snare to right here. And obviously with this kind of bounce, it sounds a little bit weird, but that's just one example of something you could do. We could add maybe another kick in here or something. Also, the hi-hats are just a simple 2-step, so let's take out a couple notes here and there. And just like that, I took out a couple hi-hats and I added like one more kick in here. And now I've got a weird, interesting little transition thing going on. And that actually sounds really cool. I might use that for like a transition between the verse and the chorus or whatever. Also, to go along with this, if you feel like you're not getting enough bounce out of your drums, one thing that I would really recommend is to have your 808 and your kick not hitting all at the same note. So maybe add an 808 in right here just to give it a little bit more bounce. Also, one weird misconception that we really just need to So many YouTubers and stuff are always like, you can only put the root note of the chord as your 808 pattern. I think the reason for this is because it's just much more convenient to only do the root note, and it just sounds good, and you can put that and you'll be fine. However, you can also use the 3rd and the 5th of whatever chord that root note is playing over. And if you don't know music theory stuff, that's fine, don't worry about it. But a simple explanation would be, if your melody, this last chord, let's say that it was a D sharp minor, right? This is the D sharp minor right here. Not only can you use this note right here, but you can also use this note and you can use this note. And usually it sounds good if the root note plays right at the beginning, but for little transition notes at the end here, use this one and use this one because it will sound cool and it would lead really well into the next one. And the scale that these 808 notes are in, it could be a diminished chord, it could be a B major 2nd inversion, but whatever, don't worry about all that stuff. And the most basic way possible, you can use other 808 notes if they sound good in your beat. Also, I realized that saying, well, just make a different drum pattern if your patterns are boring is, pretty, because it can be kind of confusing. It's like, well, where do I start? Like, how do I choose a different drum pattern to use? And honestly, one pretty universal tip that I can give to anybody about anything is just listen to more music. Listen to other different types of music that you haven't listened to before. You will definitely hear new and different drum patterns that will inspire you to make new and different stuff. So another reason your drums might be getting kind of boring, you may have not even thought about, but it could be because you're using the same or similar tempo all the time. So if we literally just take this drum pattern and slow it down, that right there has a whole different vibe to it, and all we did was just change the tempo a little bit. If you open up your DAW and literally just change the tempo to something that you really don't work in very often, it's gonna force you to kind of think outside the box and, change your usual method of making beats. Sometimes that can be good and inspire you to do new and cool creative things, or sometimes it can be bad and kind of throw you off your game a little bit, but it doesn't hurt to try. So this next one is actually a pretty big thing. Another reason your drums might be boring is because everything is right on grid, right on the lines, and it just sounds super robotic. So there are different levels to this. Some people might know the trick where you go in here and you go to the wrench and then you turn up the shift a little bit on your hi-hats. Makes it so your hi-hats are shifted over slightly. It's not super noticeable unless you really crank this thing up like this. Just a little bit goes a long way in making your drum pattern not sound super robotic. Sometimes if you're feeling a little frisky, maybe you want to do some Monty Booker type stuff, you can bring this shift up like a lot, like to like here, and it'll give your stuff a really cool bounce. The next reason that you might be kind of bored with your drums actually goes along with the last one, and it's that all your velocities are the same. So you might know about the little trick you can do with your hi-hats where you alter the velocities of every other one like this. A lot of people know about that. It's a pretty common thing. But however, you don't just have to adjust the velocities with hi-hats. You can also do it with your kicks and your snares and claps and stuff like that. One huge thing I do that just adds so much bounce to your drums, go to somewhere where you have 2 kicks like this, go to the piano roll, and then just make sure that this kick, the first one, is down a lot lower in velocity. And this will just give your drum pattern such a nice bounce. Something about that is so much better than this. Another thing you can do with your hi-hats that I actually have like a vague memory of seeing Metro Boomin do is hitting Alt-R and then just randomizing the these hi-hats. And if you want to, you can do that with any other drum sound just to add a little more life to it. Alright, so the next tip that I can give you to spice up your drum patterns a little bit actually goes along with the last 2 that I've shown you. One thing I highly recommend you do, or at least try, is to record through a Midi keyboard, or if you don't have a Midi keyboard, just use your regular computer keyboard. And talk about human feel, this is literally the best you can get. You, a human, probably, actually playing the notes. You can't get much more human than that. If you haven't tried doing this before, you'll be very surprised how much it changes your sound. You might also not be very good at it at first. However, it's good to practice because it helps you out with your rhythm a lot. But usually the first thing I would start with is the hi-hats. So let's just get rid of this bad boy and then just turn the metronome on. And now on your drum pattern or Midi keyboard or regular computer keyboard, just find wherever the middle C note is, because that will probably be what the sample is routed to. And then just hit record and start playing. So the first thing here is that I hit a wrong note, but it actually sounded kind of cool, honestly. This is a great way to just come across, happy little accidents that you might make that might actually sound really cool. And you have to get rid of your, typical trap beat producer urge to line all these up perfectly. Trust me, I have it as well. But yeah, try to just leave as many notes as you can. If there's a couple notes in there that are kind of really throwing off the bounce, definitely go in there and change those. I did a pretty good job here, but if you see, this one is pretty far from this one, so we'll just move this over just a little bit and then move this one back maybe. One thing I would actually recommend you try is moving your 808s over just a little bit from your kick. If you're listening to a band or recording live music or whatever the case may be, a lot of times the bass guitar will be a little bit offset from the drums. It's called like being in the pocket or whatever. If you want to, you can do the same thing kind of with your 808. A lot of times the kick drum will sound a lot fatter if you have the bass guitar playing a little bit after. So you can try to apply that same tactic to your trap beats or whatever other beats you're making. We'll just take this and then just do Control A and then hold down Alt and then move it over a little bit. And you can kind of do this however you like it. Move it over a little bit, move it over a lot. Don't do it all. It's totally up to you. So honestly, the final thing that might be the problem with your beats is that they just suck. Just kidding, but your mixing might suck though. You should check out this video right here if you want to learn more about mixing. But a general tip that I can give you for mixing drums is that you want your kick to be the loudest thing. You want your 808 to be a little bit quieter than that. You want to have your main clap or snare being like a little bit lower than the 808, and then having your hi-hats and then your open hi-hat sitting below that, and then other little percussion stuff and added sounds. Just make sure it's not too loud, make sure it's not too quiet. Also, one final thing about the mixing that I see a lot is people having their open hi-hats just way too loud, because for whatever reason it's something that you just kind of neglect in the beat. So honestly, you just want to have your open hat be pretty tucked away in the mix. It's just another little thing to kind of move your beat along. So yeah, the final reason that your drums might be boring is because you haven't gone to feezostore.com. So yeah, that is pretty much going to do it for me in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully I was able to give you guys a little bit of inspiration, give you some cool swag little tips here. So yeah, make sure you guys go check out my Instagram and my SoundCloud down in the description below, along with playlists of songs I produced, my beat store, my Discord, all that stuff. Go check it out if you'd like to do so. Make sure you go to feezostore.com. And I will see you guys next time.
Energy, critical.